All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I hope that everybody can see the slideshow that's up in front of you. If not, hopefully John will go ahead and send me a note if that's not up on the screen. So welcome to this year's 2013 CCA Data Collection Process webinar. And this year we're going to introduce you to all the updates and changes we've made to the CCA to the CCA data collection process. Before I get started though, and before I introduce you to the content of today's webinar and also to my colleagues who will be joining me on this webinar, I would like to give you some technical information and some basic housekeeping for the webinar. Due to the large response today, we will have all participants muted for much of the presentation. Please submit questions, though, throughout the webinar through the question and answer box. I think we'll pause between each section of the webinar to address those questions as necessary and are likely to unmute people if they would like to expand on their question. There's also a chat system that you'll notice, and we're not going to be monitoring the chat system, so if you want to ask a question, probably the best way to do that is to do it through the question and answer box that's available. Do an overview of what we're going to talk about today. The first thing that I want to do is talk about last year's process just briefly and the success that we had in last year's data reporting process. The second thing that I want to talk to you about is the role, specifically the role of the key holders, since this webinar is designed to meet the needs specifically of key holders. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Michael Baumgartner from CCA. Mike's going to talk about the minor changes and clarifications that you're going to find in this year's technical guide. And then finally, John Blegan, my colleague here at SHIO, is going to run through the actual CCA data collection process with you. You're going to hopefully see a lot of changes that respond to each of your individual needs and make the process for reporting information easier. So let's go ahead and start out with who participated last year. Last year we had over 27 institutions, 27 states that reported data to CCA. Of those 27 states, 6 of those states that are depicted in red in the map that you are seeing on your screen, 6 of those states only reported data at the state level, but 21 of those states reported institutional level data, and that was for a total of 743 institutions. So thank you all. I know that many of you were stakeholders were key holders last year. So thank you so much for the time and energy that you put into reporting. We hope that you've been able to use the metrics and the data that you've gotten to help inform state decisions around college completion. All right. Now I just want to briefly talk about the roles that we will have for this year's data collection process. The roles are very similar to last year, although we've added one additional role, hopefully to help add some clarity. So first, there's the state agency key holder, which many of you served as last year. And the real role of the state agency key holder is to coordinate the process from the state level. You are our point in contact for SHIO and for CCA. As we look through your data, if we see any changes or challenges, we're going to get in contact with you. If we are getting lots of calls from your state and they have lots of questions from us at a state level perspective, you're going to be the person that we want to contact. So we hope that you will take control of managing the institutions in your state, making sure that the institutions that we expect you to report for are actually the institutions that you plan to report for. We hope that you will operators, we've actually added a process into this year's data collection system that allows you to add operators so that you don't have to call us to add those operators, but you actually have your own autonomy to manage the people in your state that will be working on the system. And we have also added an additional role called the designated key holder. And one of the things that we noticed last year is that there were a number of states who had a key holder who managed the process, but somebody else was responsible for approving what was going on or maybe managing the process at an institutional level. So this year we've actually given you the flexibility to designate those people. So you will be able to designate somebody in your state who can approve the data for your state, who can add new operators, and who can upload and view data just as an operator can. And this designated key holder could have state level ability, or they could just have institutional level access to the data. It really, we give you the ability to make those decisions in the new system. And then finally, we still have operators. And so operators will still be able to upload and view data, but they will not necessarily be able to manage users, they won't be able to add additional institutions, and they won't be able to approve data. So that kind of gives you an overview of the different roles that you will be playing as a key holder. Once again, we're still going to expect the key holders to be that final point of approval. So even if you've designated a key holder to approve, we still want you to be comfortable and confident with that data. So we hope that you'll manage that also within your state. So that gives you a little idea about the roles that each of you might be playing in your CCA data collection process this year. Now, SHIO will continue to provide customer service support. Angela Sanchez on our team is going to be your first point of contact. You can reach her when you call into the SHIO customer service line, and you can see the information to contact customer service here. And then also you can always email the CCA customer service inbox. Many of you will still have contact with me because I'll be answering a lot of those questions. And then John Blegan and Chris Ott on our team will also be addressing people's technical issues and various other questions. So we hope that the process will go smoothly this year, and we really look forward to working with you. All right, now I'm going to pass things over to Mike Baumgartner.
We have tried to keep changes to a minimum, which is a request that we have gotten from many of you over the last couple of years that we've worked on this, and have also tried to be responsive to other suggestions that we've received. And one of the primary suggestions that we've received from states that are participating and from members of our Data Advisory Committee is that the data are older than they would like, than we would like, and as a result, they're not able to indicate trends that might have resulted based on changes that have been implemented at the state level. Now, that's still going to be an issue. It's an issue anytime you make changes in your policy, but what we've tried to do to accommodate that a bit is to move up the entering cohorts by 2 years rather than by 1. So the previous 2 years we've just moved up one cohort. If it was fall 2002, then it would be fall 2003. This time around we are moving up 2 cohorts to try to get it more timely, more real-time data. So all of the metrics will have their cohorts moved up by 2 years. So it was fall 2007 last year, it'll be fall 2009. If it was fall 2003 last year, it'll be fall 2006. Can you have the next slide, Katie? Most of the other changes are just matters of clarification rather than any sorts of major changes. For instance, this first one is pretty simple. Previously in Outcome 1, we didn't have a category for bachelor's degrees awarded by 2-year institutions. Those of you who have that sort of arrangement within your state probably did this already, but just for clarification, we took the four-year institutions label off and now just have a bachelor's degree category. So if two-year institutions do award bachelor's degrees, they should be put there. For outcome 2, because we've moved up 2 cohort years, thus skipping one, the 8-year graduation for rates for bachelor's degree students can't be captured in this year's submission. So that will be picked up next year, and we'll just be able to do 100% and 150% for the bachelor's degree cohort in outcome 2. Next slide, please. For outcome 3, a number of you have asked us why we're not tracking transfer students outside of a state's borders, and some of you may have been reporting them outside of a state's borders. Because the transfer mission is so important to get right, we have decided to take off any restrictions on transfers outside of the state. We did that in the past because we knew that some states weren't able to track them, and we wanted consistency. It seems like now that the states want to go out of state, though. So for the 2-year institutions that are following their transfer students into their next institution through transfer should be reporting this year inside or outside of the state. Either one is fine. But for those states that are unable to track the transfers out of state, they should notify us that they're still only able to do the in-state transfers. Next slide. Okay. For outcome 4, we are clarifying that remedial courses should be included in credits to degree and time to degree. We have been trying to make the metrics as consistent with other organizations as possible, and one that a number of you belong to, the SREB, includes the non-credit remedial courses in credits to degree and time to degree. I know they work on attempted credit rather than accumulated credit completed, but I was concerned that we were getting things that were too far apart, and I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. So we have asked that the remedial courses be included in the credit to degree and time to degree as if they were credit-bearing courses. There's more clarification of that in the manual. And we've also added a clarification that was somewhat informal and in the frequently asked questions that if a student has stopped out for 5 years or more, they should be excluded from the calculations in time to degree and credits to degree. For progress metrics 1 and 2, we want to clarify that first-time students who enrolled in remedial courses in the summer before fall entry should be included in the progress 1 and 2 cohorts. Now, if they started at a time, say, in a May term that was classified by that state in the previous academic year, then they wouldn't be included. But if they're going to be included as first-time students in the fall cohort and they started in summer and were enrolled in remedial courses, they should be in progress 1 and 2. Again, that was from feedback that we got that we were undercounting students who needed remediation, those coming out of high school in particular, and to get a better read on the actual need that we needed to include those students who started in the summer term. Next slide, please. In progress 3 and 4, we've asked that remedial students be included. Those were in the metrics guide, but had not been included in the actual collection last year. As a disaggregation category, we want to make sure that's included this time around. In progress metric 5, we continue to fine-tune this. Last year we had added the transferred and graduated so that we had a retention and progression measure to make sure that schools and states were getting credit for what their students were doing. This year, in order to make this clearer, we're asking that the transfer and graduate records be separated rather than put together. Concerned that students were being double counted as transferred and as graduated. So you should use the outcome that they achieved first in this categorization. So if they graduated and then transferred, then they should be counted as graduated. If they transferred and then through a reverse transfer somehow were awarded a degree, they should be counted as a transfer instead. Then on progress metric 6, we are separating out another metric on the very high research versus 4-year other campuses. This is one that we hadn't done last year, but seemed like we needed to do that this year. Next slide, please. Finally, in order to try to align better with access to success, and again, we're cognizant of the burden that different data collections place on you all, and we don't want that to be a heavy burden. I mean, we wish it weren't a burden at all, but we know that it exists. So we've tried to align the transfer definition with access to success metrics, and what this does is avoid a problem that we would have had previously or could have had previously with double counting students. So that at the state level, transfer student is a student who transfers from outside the state or from a private institution in the state or moves from one program level to another. That way we're not counting students as first-time students and then transfer students at the state level by picking them up 2 times. The definition of a transfer student at the campus level will remain the same as it was, though. There won't be a duplication issue there, just at the state level. So those are the changes and the clarifications we've made this year. We continue to listen to you and try to make these meaningful and try to make them clear and consistent. And I hope that what we've clarified and changed hasn't put an additional burden on. That is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to lessen the burden, but that's where we are with the changes and clarifications. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, so for those of you who worked with us last year, we've made some important changes to the collection process, which we think will make it easier. The hard work, we know, is getting the data ready, but we want to make it as easier as possible to get it into the system. You should be able to see a diagram that you may have seen last year of the way the old collection process worked. I'm not going to talk about it except to see that it was spreadsheet-centric, that except for the ability to load batch files, everything else had to be done from the spreadsheet. You had to do the validation and the approval, and everything else was from the spreadsheet. And Katie, if you could jump ahead a slide. This year we have reduce the significance of the spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, those institutions who are able to produce their batch files directly from your internal systems won't need the spreadsheet at all. You can upload and validate the data in one step, and then you can review it and approve it, and you're done. So we believe that will greatly affect the process. If there are errors after you upload it, then the theory is that you should correct those errors at the source. So if your data system produced an error for one reason, it's either a problem with the data or a problem with your code that produces the batch files, then the error should be fixed there, and then you just upload it again and then approve it. Those of you who don't have automated ways to produce those batch files, we've retained the spreadsheet but minimized its functionality. So the spreadsheet primarily allows you to enter data and create a batch file, and then you operate just like all the other states, loading that batch file to the system. In the event that you need to correct something and you've lost your spreadsheet, you can reload that data that you previously loaded to the database back to your batch file, to your Excel spreadsheet, modify it, and create the batch file. So that's pretty much the core, and if the system at that high level makes sense, then the rest of it we think is fairly intuitive. And with that, we can go to the demo. The system homepage now looks like this. I'm going to put back on my speakerphone so I can get my hands free and hope everybody can hear fine. So as a user, you should, if you were a key holder last year, you should have the same credentials as last year, the same username and password, which is your email and whatever your password was. So I've created a key holder user ID for myself, JB key holder, and a password. And when you log in, the only difference you see is you begin to see these menus at the top. And we're going to start with the functions that are unique to key holders, since this was a Keyholder webinar. And one of the first things you'd want to do is manage your organizations. Recall we use the word organization to mean either a state agency or an institution. Since you are a state agency, you would only see yourself and the institution. So in this case, my All-American State, I created a state agency for myself, has two institutions, All-American State Test 1 and State Test 2. And so one of the first things you'd want to do is check this page and be sure that you have all the institutions that you intend to report for, and you can remove institutions for whom you do not intend to report. And then, of course, you'll want to check to see that their information is correct. The form here lets you edit any of these organizations by clicking on the edit screen, and you get this form. And the things you want to look here besides is the institution name spelled right, is particularly what class do you want to report in. So these are the IPEDS classes, all other four-year very high research, 2-year institutions and other. And if those aren't the way you want this reported, that's where you would change that. And in this case, I've got a very high research, and that's not where it should be. I'm going to move this to all other 4, save and close, and it's as simple as that to manage your organizations. Users are those people that are going to help you, and so check to see who is brought over from last year. People who were active users last year will be already there. They may not be in your organization, so you may need to delete some or add some or whatever. In this case, I'm going to add a couple of users. And if you notice here, right above the username is this little link for inserting a new user. I click here, and I could give somebody a username. I'm going to call this one, I'll use my initials, and I'm going to call him an institution operator, or I'll just call him an operator. And I'm going to give him a password. It's not a very safe password. We highly recommend that you click the force password change so that the user will change this password to something that's unique. A bit on the roles and assignment of passwords. The system is designed to track very carefully who did what, and sometimes that's necessary in untangling things that happen that you didn't intend. Last year, we know we had some people who gave other people their credentials because we didn't have the ability to delegate responsibilities. And we'd like you not to do that. And if you need somebody to help you out, you give them a role in order to do that. So I'm not going to check this now, but we think you should. I'm making this person a state operator, and I'll show you the impact of that. The person will have authority. Sorry, I can't spell. But you need to give them an accurate email address because that's what the link is to be able to recover a lost password. So I've added the operator. I'm going to click here to make this person an operator. And click Save, and we've now got JB Operator, and his default organization is the state. Now I'm going to do another one just to see comparison. I'm going to call this one JB Operator 2, and the same insecure password. Okay, and clicked operator, so I saved this person, and now I've got 2 operators. I made a mistake here because I made this default organization state, the state for both of them, so I'm going to go back and edit operator 2 and make his default organization just one of the institutions. Now the reason I did this is because there's a couple of other things we want to look at, one of which is assigning what organizations users have access to, and that's the manage users and orgs. So if I go to this page, and I'll see all of the orgs in my state on the left side. If I click on operator, remember that operator had the state agency as his default, and he has access to all of the institutions in the state. I'm going to take away the institution 1 from this person, so that now they only have access to the state agency data and institution 2. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to operator 2. Oops, a mistake here. I'm going to take these. We have a system mistake that we will correct. We should have only seen his data for 1 because he was only assigned to institution 1. So I'm going to save that, and operator 2 only has access to institution 1. So I can give people whatever level of access I want. In this case, operator 1 has 2/3 of the state, and operator 2 has 1/3 of the state. I can also change roles. So let's say that this operator 2 is an institution person, and I want them to be able to actually approve data for me as a delegated key holder. So now I can assign that person the key holder role, and that person can essentially do my job for that institution. So it gives you a great deal of flexibility about managing your organizations, your institutions, and managing the users, the team of people that are going to help you upload the data. So I'm going to go to actually how you actually produce data, and I'm going to start by uploading data that's been prepared. The 2 different formats are allowed as last year, but we are strongly recommended that you use the 3-column format. It's just much safer and avoids getting the wrong institution loaded. We've retained the 2-column if you wrote programs last year that produced the 2-column format, so it'll still support that. But if you're redoing your programs or writing new programs, we strongly recommend that you use the 3-column format that includes the org ID and the data, because that'll more securely see that you get that data into the system. So now, as I'm still logged on as key holder for my All-American test state, and I'm going to go to my test data, and I have a full file for my institution 1 that has all of the metrics in it. And to upload that file, I click upload, and it will take a few seconds. I'm hearing a lot of noise from somebody who's unmuted. So if you're unmuted and making a lot of noise, you might want to mute yourself. So in 10 seconds here, and it may take a little longer in production because you will be farther away from the server, but it uploaded 8,000 rows of data, and it edited it. Last year, you recall, you had to download it to the spreadsheet and run the validation program on each metric. In this case, that was run on all of the metrics at one time. And there's a little link here that says view the file error summary, and you can click on that and see what your errors are. This data has quite a few, and frankly, we're still tuning some of the error checking. But there are 4 categories, and you should know that. The first category is data that was not imported at all. That would be data that was so invalid it didn't know what to do with it. If it was, for instance, if it had an institution ID that you didn't have authority for, or an incorrect institution ID, or if the variable names were not correct, it would throw that into this not loaded category, and you'd know to fix those. The next group is data errors that were loaded, and this would include some of the things like the totals not as large as the sum of the parts, and some of those sorts of errors. And it lets you, again, some of these are not correct, but you can click on the error and see the actual occurrences of that error. Then any warnings. We know we had some cautions last year, and this is the same ones that tell you that something might not be right and you should have a look. And at the very bottom, you have data suppression notice. This is values from 1 to 10 that the data needs to be suppressed on. And if there's time, I'll explain how we're doing that this year, but please check the documentation. We're actually going to do that for you when you approve the data. Under data management is all the various ways you can look at the data. So we've been looking at the error summary. The metric tables are the correspond to what you used to see in the spreadsheet. So if I want to see the data for that we just uploaded in the table, it is there. The light blue color is data suppression problems. This happens to be an error in our code that we're fixing, because a 0 should not be requiring suppression. That should be okay. But a value from 1 to 10 would get a blue warning there. You don't have to fix that, because we will take care of it for you when you approve it. And we know that many of the states like to see that suppressed data for the institutions in order to be able to do your aggregation within the state. And so it remains visible to you until the time you approve that data. If we go to another metric here, we might see some different errors. And this error happens to also be wrong, but the red indicator would be that there's an error. Degree production, if I recall, has no errors. So there's your data loaded and fully ready. Now, from this review sheet, you can go directly to the approval status for that institution, and that shows all of the data. You can also get to that from this form. You get to the approval status, but you just have to indicate what institution you're looking at. All of the metrics are listed for that institution or organization. The last time that data was uploaded is indicated, and by whom. If there are errors, the number of errors, and then the last time it was reviewed. We looked at 3 of those, and it shows that I reviewed those or viewed them. It doesn't say I totally reviewed them, but it gives you an idea that there's something you've looked at, and then you can approve it right here. So it's not a good idea to approve things that you've not looked at, but just to show how easy it is, the ones with the errors you don't get to approve. You got to resolve the errors first. But for all those that are ready to approve, you can approve them. It's not required that you review them, and so here it shows that I approved it, but nobody had reviewed it. But it is possible. So, and you can unapprove. We decided that unapprove isn't a word, so it's undo the approval just as easily. So those of you who spend hours downloading data to the spreadsheet, running the validations on each individual page, and then approving each individual page, you can see that I hope we've made your life a lot easier. We hope not so easy that you don't review the data, but at least easier to do that sort of thing. And then, like last year, you can look at the detailed data for your org and a metric, so I can see the current data. And I'm just going to copy one of these variable names. If you want to see just an individual variable, you can find that. And if you want to see previous uploads that you've replaced, you can do that. And so this one's been uploaded 4 times. The value hasn't changed in this particular item, but it's been uploaded multiple times. So it's really that simple. So manage your users in your orgs. You can upload your files and then manage the data. We think one of the things that's really slick that I maybe didn't make as clear as I should have, from an individual table that you're reviewing, I'll pick one. You can see the data, and then you can go back to its approval status and decide to approve it or not. And if you want to look at the data again by clicking on this metric name column in a particular metric, it takes you right over to be able to look at it in its tabular form. So we think that will make life very easy. You can also, remember those of you who added comments to individual pages, you can do that right here. So, and those are saved with the record, and it shows right here in this space, which expands to whatever size your comment is, and identifies who wrote the comment and the date. The only thing you can't do that you might think you could is you can't change the data from this form. The only way to change data that you've loaded is to reload it. That may seem difficult, but we don't think it's that hard, and we think it supports what we think is good practice to, if there's errors in the data, fix them at the source. If you're producing it programmatically, fix it in the program. If you've got a spreadsheet and you're producing it through some collection of spreadsheets, fix it in that collection of spreadsheets and then reload it. And we really think that's more efficient and more accurate for you throughout the process. And I will try to show how easy that is. I don't have a program to share with you to create data, but we do have the spreadsheet that we had last year. And it works in some ways like last year. So I called myself JB Keyholder at mail.com, I think. You might be surprised we're not able to validate the password until after you put in an institution. So that's not a big deal unless you're not expecting it. So All-American Test State is a valid institution, but that's not what I want. So here's All-American 1. And I have 4 functions. I can create a batch file from the workbook, which would be useless because there's nothing in the workbook at the moment. Or I can retrieve either this sheet or the entire workbook from the database. In this case, I'm just going to retrieve this sheet. It warns me that it's going to replace whatever I have, and it takes a few seconds for it to go out to the database and get that data. And I'll keep talking while it's doing that. And here we go, and it says it's done. So I close this, and here's the data that I just loaded a few minutes ago to the database. I'm going to take these, I'm going to assume that I made a mistake and I really have 50 Native American Pacific Islanders, and I'm going to, just for future reference, to copy this into my clipboard, and you'll see why in a minute. And so I'm going to make that change, and then I go back to the menu, and I don't need to have a password in order to create a batch file because I'm just creating that on my hard drive. So I'm going to create a batch file from this worksheet, and it'll do so, and I have to save it, and so I'm going to call it as All-American Context 1, number 2. And it's done. So now I can go back over to my application on the web, go to the file upload, find that file. Here it is. Upload that file. Click the upload button. While it's doing this upload, it is also taking the previous values and saving those out to an archive. So we keep every version that you've previously uploaded into the database. So I can look at my file error summary, and I still have errors, not a surprise. And if I go here, I get fewer errors, but there's still some errors. But if I go to the upload history, excuse me, that's not what I needed. I needed the data detail for All-American 1. context 1, and I view the data, and there's the new data. Now that variable name that I saved, this is the one I changed. If I look at that, there's my value of 50. If I'm curious to know who put 50 in there, I can look at the archive data and see that all of these uploads previously done, the value was 0, but in the most recent one, the value changed to 50. So I'm able to track how things changed as I was working on this thing. One file I didn't indicate, one menu I didn't show is under upload history. By username, email, collection year, or institution, you can see all of the uploads that have been done. So for this particular institution, there have been 6 different uploads that we've done. Hopefully, in most cases, you won't have to do that many, but it'll be frequently that you probably have to do a couple because you'll get some errors in the first time. I'll do one more quick thing, and then hopefully we have a couple of minutes left for questions. If I go back to the metrics table for All-American 1, Context 1, no, I'm going to go to degree production 1 because that didn't have any errors. I'm going to go from here to the approval status, and I'm going to approve this. Well, wait a minute. Let's look at it again. I'm going to go back over here again and see if I have any I can't do this because I don't have any values that will be suppressed. But if there were values between 1 and 11 in here, when I approved it, those would be replaced with DS for data suppressed. So, but I can't demonstrate that. With that, I'm going to give this thing back to Katie.
We have one question that has come through the question and answer box, and that is somebody wanted to know when the technical specs will be available. All of the documents to support this process are currently available on the CCA data collection website. So I believe that's ccacollection.scio.org, I believe. And I think it's on a previous slide. So you can get the new metrics technical guide. You can get the user guide for how to use the system when it opens, which should be on early next week. You can get the file specification for how to construct your flat file, as well as the table of variable names. So hopefully all of the information that you need is going to be available on that website. And if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Katie, let me add one thing about the website I neglected before. The website is available. You can log into it and check out your credentials. You can start doing things like updating your institution information and your user information that we described today. The only thing that doesn't work on it is the upload data. We are making some final changes to the data collection and checking its out some validations, and approximately next Tuesday we'll send out a notice that the upload data button will actually work. But you can do everything else except push that button. I didn't also talk about multiple years of data. Your 2012 data will be there. Actually, there's data now, but we haven't finished testing it. So you'll be able to review what you loaded last year, even make corrections to last year, but please carefully check what it says in the user manual about corrections before you do anything with last year's data. And you're welcome to look at it, but if you find something, well, if you do find something wrong, let us know because we're still testing that data. We'll let you know when that's ready too.
Well, since I'm not seeing any more questions come through, I think that we are ready to wrap up then. So thank you all for taking the time to be here today, and thank you so much for your patience with some of the technical challenges that we've faced on this webinar. But hopefully you got the information that you need to help you with the 2013 CCA data collection process. Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions, and we really look forward to working with all of you.